This video is I've always had to have problems with stalkers. I don't know why. I just always have. And I have people who who claim they despise me and hate me, but can't seem to leave me alone. As I stop talking about me or stop thinking about me. Perhaps that's why. Maybe I'm too charismatic or some shit, and I have some effect on them, and they can't stop it. Or else they pissed me off somehow. I've moved them out of their life, and they realise that, well, life is rather incredibly boring and dull without me and my online social networks to actually make it rich and interesting. But for whatever reason, there's this one individual. This question is basically going out to him. It's a male, it's not a female, and you know who you are, and you were basically following me all over Facebook, telling me I didn't know anything about what Jesus really was, and he kept saying I was confusing Catholicism with Christianity, or Jesus, the entity, or the person, or the God, or deity, whatever you want to call him. I got so sick of it, I blocked you on Facebook, and then you actually showed up on my open source occult Facebook page, basically following me around saying Jesus is not you. You must worship Jesus, and you're all over my YouTube channels doing the same thing. So yeah, okay, I'll indulge you. Normally I have zero tolerance for obsessive personality disorders, and I just leave them to go, eventually, glide up or ascend up their own backsides. But I will indulge you on this one. How do I feel about Jesus Christ, right? This will probably piss off Christians. I don't care. I grew up in Ireland in the 1970s and 80s, and I'm well used to being pissed off by Christians. So I'm just giving you back what you imposed upon me through all your churches as a kid. Now, first of all, I don't believe Jesus exists. There's absolutely zero proof that an individual called Jesus Christ existed. Now, that's not to say there wasn't some kind of Jewish radical, or some kind of Essene radical, or some kind of a zealot radical in Palestine or Judea, where it was called at that period, who pissed off the Romans and was crucified. The Romans crucified a lot of people back then, so there probably would have been, it could be a composite character. But the problem is the historical record. The earliest historical records we have that even come close to being validated are about 70 years after his alleged death. And it's basically a doctor who knew somebody who was treating, I think it was St. Matthew. But this is where it begins. And after that point, that's when I had to change the battery then. Maybe God is punishing me. Yeah, but anyway, there's decades and decades, maybe even a century close to, before we can get anything close to written validation of his existence. And even then, it's incredibly tentative. Now, so my basic underlying thing is that Jesus as the person, as a historical figure, completely didn't exist. Now, Jesus as a sort of an amalgamation of previous deities, which Romans were very good at. Yes, he was. I mean, this has been covered by so many people. I'm not even going to go there. But basically, he's Horus and Mithra. Mithra was the sort of bull-venerated god of the Roman legions, and Horus was the Egyptian, ancient Egyptian. But the Romans used to do this. They used to incorporate religions, local festivals, into their overall pantheon of religions. That happened on everywhere. I mean, St. Patrick's Day is a Roman festival called Liberalia. It was a festival of beer and cabbage and fornication. So it's just March 17th, there's Liberalia. So that's the end of that. So there was no historic Jesus, at least there's absolutely no record for him. There's the actual religious function of Jesus as a story is an amalgamation or a hybrid of the Horus and Mithra, and various bits of Zoroastrianism and other kind of pagan religions. Because ultimately Christianity is just a pagan religion anyway. So that brings us to Christmas. Here we are coming up to Christmas. That's just the solstice, the pagan festival. I mean, it's Yuletide, the Druidic festivals, the summer solstice, the whole thing. It's just like everything about Christianity is pagan to begin with. Easter is Ostara. It's a fertility cult rite festival. It's also based on Beltane, a festival of fire, everything like that. Now that brings me to two aspects here. The symbolism of the cross is the first one I want to talk about. Now, the symbol of the cross, the crucifix symbol, that has existed everywhere, long before Christianity. It's one of those forms, one of those symbolic shapes that have always existed in human life. There's a stone not far from here. It's attributed to the early Bronze Age, but I think it's probably Neolithic, going by the artwork called the Bohea stone. It was uncovered in 1987. It's covered in various Neolithic style artwork, the classic, circles and hatches and circles and cut marks, and there's a cross on it. And as soon as it was discovered, the local holy rollers, as well as the archaeologists, said, "Oh, that's probably some early Christian carved the cross on it." And that's the absolute crap they come out with. The cross is everywhere. It's all over Neolithic and even Paleolithic art. Now, what is the cross? Why is the symbol of the cross? Now, we all know that literally Jesus is the Sol Invictus, the sun, okay? So when Christians are worshipping Jesus, it doesn't matter if they're Catholics or Protestants or anything, they're a solar cult. They're worshipping the sun. And that's just how it is. This is one of the problems. You cannot get Christians they're so utterly brainwashed, but ultimately they're so intellectually corrupted that they can't bring themselves to examine honestly their own cult that they're in. So that's, Sol Invictus is the sun. It's a solar cult in that form. But there's also, as with any emerging spiritual tradition, there will be, amalgamations, additions, and various connections coming along. In terms of the crucifix and its identification with Christianity, what does that represent? Well, the crucifix doesn't necessarily represent the sun. The swastika generally has been accepted in just most cultures, especially Indo-European cultures, that the swastika represents the sun. So it's the same thing, it's a solar deity. And there's also a very interesting theory that it represents the Ursa Major, the Great Bear, the Big Dipper, or whatever you want to call it, the plough, orbiting the pole star. And that's a very good theory. I actually quite like that. That may have been prevalent in northern European cultures. But in that sense, Jesus as a symbol is the sun. He's the light of the world as well. Now, let me talk about the light of the world in terms of the crucifix. The reason why the crucifix, and this is my own theory now, okay? So you're welcome to tear it to pieces, but this is my own theory. That the sign that you see, this cross that you see on Paleolithic and Neolithic and Bronze Age art everywhere, is a representation of two sticks being rubbed together to make a fire. Okay? Two sticks rubbed together. Now, what's the symbolism of fire? Well, if you're in, say, an ancient Paleolithic culture, or even later Neolithic culture, the ability to create fire would have been seen as the first great act of magic, probably after altering women's menstrual cycles by putting them under the ground. I talk about that in the Druid Code. But it was probably the creation of fire, right? And if you had the ability to be a fire maker by rubbing the two sticks together, you were literally a kind of a god. You were bringing the star of the sun down to earth. You were creating at the center of the cross the light of the world, because without that at night, in a Paleolithic or Neolithic or Bronze Age society, you would have been very susceptible to attack, mainly by animals, but also the fear of the dark was being conquered. So the creation of fire by the two crosses together, the sticks, is very, very important. The number four also originates from that. That's why we get the four Gospels and so on, the four evangelists, and there's numerous books. There's the 4 books of the Quran. The number 4 is directly linked to the cross. So it really comes from a fire cult. So Zoroastrianism, which is basically a fire cult, is probably the nearest thing to a true religion from the Middle East, in that part of the world, Persia. So that's what those two sticks rubbed together creates fire. In the middle of the crosshairs is the light of the world, the actual flame, the spark, the ignition that helps you get through the night and keeps the evil, the monsters, the devils, the wild animals at bay. It's very simple stuff. Christians just don't want to go there. Now the other one too, speaking from, that's in terms of a kind of a pragmatic explanation of the idea. I'm going to talk now about a kind of a more supernatural idea, the idea in terms of demonology. There is a theory which I've extrapolated personally upon, that the idea that Jesus Christ is a demon. Now, I have absolutely no doubt that the God of the Bible, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever you want to call him, is a psychopathic, unstable, unhinged, murderous, bloodthirsty demon, okay? Pretending to be the God that created the world. This Semitic entity is absolutely... anything that would come from the idea of causing genocide and rape or horrific punishments is definitely a demonic type, a sort of pathologically demonic type entity. So that's why I would rather make my peace with the devil or Lucifer or Satan if these entities existed. Well, Lucifer probably existed. The Satan and the devil definitely didn't exist, but than deal with this psychopathic demon that's behind the Bible. Now, there's a belief that, like, okay, you had like the Gnostics and you had the Cathars, and they said, well, the Demiurge, the demon of the Old Testament, we don't worship him. He's bad news. We worship Jesus, though. Jesus was the one who came to release us from this. But I have mixed feelings about this too, as well. In anyone who's ever had a problem with a possession or demonic aspect and a demonic presence in their life will tell you that they've had great success calling out the name of Jesus. They call out the name of Jesus. And they will say, well, that's proof he's the Son of God and he's more powerful than all the demons. But that's not how demonology works. In demonology, you basically have to tame lesser demons with greater demons. It's almost like the carnivore watching the sheepdog, and guiding them and herding them. And Jesus may be the most powerful demon of them all. Now, why do I say that? Well, he may be either some kind of offshoot of the Demiurge, of Jehovah, of the primary demon of the Abrahamic religions, or he may be one that was created by the intensity of the Council of Nicaea in AD, I think it was 325. In AD 325, the Byzantine bishops met in Nicaea, which is now in present-day Turkey, and they basically created what we have as today as the Catholic Bible. Well, it's also the Bible of the Protestants, and they didn't really change much today. And at the Council of Nicaea, they decided what goes in the book and what doesn't, and they made this very harsh, dark book talking about a loving God and then describing him in a gaslighting sense as being a psychopathic, murderous demon. The concept of hell became very focused and very central to the idea of the gathering of these texts. Several books were left out, such as the Gnostic Gospels, such as the Synoptic Gospels as well, such as the Book of St. Thomas, and several other Hebrew and earlier Zoroastrian and earlier Canaanite pagan texts that were basically had been incorporated into this Romanized progression that spiraled its way into the Byzantine Church. They may have actually, these bishops at Nicaea in AD 325 may have been infected by this demon, and this demon came to be known as Jesus. And this demon is probably the reason why it's probably the Demiurge in a different form, Jehovah, Yahweh. But this is the reason why it frightens away other demons when his name is invoked, because these other demons are lesser demons. So there you go. I hope that shocked the shit out of you, because it doesn't bother me. To me, it's just, okay, I'm not saying it's 100% true. It's a train of discussion I put out there in terms of, so A, you can stalk me all you like. You can follow me all over the internet saying things like the Catholic Church isn't the real Jesus. Absolutely, 100%. The Catholic Church invented the Jesus Christ you worship. At the Council of Nicaea in AD 325, and all the Presbyterian texts that came post-Calvinist, post-Lutheran are all based on the Catholic Bible. There's been no change at all, really, except some linguistic changes in terms of translating it from Latin into English and into German and so on. So that's the first thing, right? So don't give me this crap that there's a real Jesus. There's no real Jesus at all. The symbolic Jesus is completely, if there's any real Jesus, it's probably a demon. The symbolic Jesus is based on a solar worship And the cross symbol is based on rubbing two sticks together to create the light of the world, to guide you through the darkness, to keep the demons and the monsters at bay that exist beyond the cave or the hut door. And if the reason why Jesus works in dispelling demons is because he's probably a super demon created by the bishops of the Council of Nicaea in AD 325. If someone can't produce evidence other than this, I'd be glad to do it. You see, a lot of people go through the stage. See, we live in a stage today where people they're Christian, they believe, they discover atheism, and they discount all Christianity, and they discount all spiritual paths. And then you have some who become atheist. I was about an atheist for about 20 minutes, who then go into Satanism. Satanism is basically a kind of a ritualized version of atheism. And then often those people will jump into things like chaos magic and so on. So that's it. Jesus didn't exist purely as a symbol idea, and if he does exist at all, he's a demon. If you want to keep stalking me and keep leaving this stuff all over the internet, please do. If you have real hard information that this is not true or it's complete bollocks, then I'm open to it. But otherwise, this is how I feel about the issue, and that's where it ends. And so happy Demon Star.